Hey guys, welcome back to the Paladin's Alliance. It's finally time. It's finally time for the IEM Rio Major, and with that comes pick'ems. We gotta get through them. We gotta aim for that diamond coin. It's gonna be really hard this year. Don't get me wrong. Last year, we were this close to getting the diamond. I think we were off by just that last final matchup between Navi and FaZe. And the year before, we actually got diamond. So now we're gonna try to see if we can stay in that same bracket, and I'm very interested to see what you guys think of my picks. We'll start off with the 0-3 because I think this one's pretty simple. I'm going to go with Greyhound here just because I think the toss-up here is IHC, 9Z, and Greyhound. And I just think that Greyhound isn't up to the caliber of a team like 9Z or even like a potential team like Imperial who might start off slow with the matchups that they might be dealt. I think that the one matchup that I fear for everybody is that IHC versus Greyhound matchup. And I just think that after last year's results, after the domestic results this time, I just think that IHC domestically wins that matchup 9 times out of 10. They have a great understanding of the game. It's not your typical Asian CS. It is a little bit more default heavy. They've done their homework, and I don't think Greyhound is going to be ready for it. Therefore, I think that they're going to go 0-3 at this major. Sorry, but that's just how the cookie crumbles. As far as the 3-0 is concerned, this is really weird to say, but I'm going to put Gamer Legion. I'm not necessarily the highest of highs on this squad. However, I do think that they're still a very competitive squad. And with the matchups that I've potentially come up with through the simulator, they could really easily have a path all the way through that most people are not going to expect. It's going to be one of those weird teams to make it all the way through. But I think they have the firepower to do it. I think with the matchups that they have, they can win some of them. I think the hardest one they would have is like a potential 2-0 with Furia. And I think that they can get it done with that lineup. Just there's a bit of a swing factor in that matchup, but I think that they can get it done. Okay, so let's get through basically the main 7 teams. We need only 5 correct. So far I feel like we'll at least get one of these being the Greyhound one. I know the Gamer Legion one might be a bit of a shot in the dark. So I'll start with the most likely to make it through and the least likely of the 7 that I say would advance. I'm going to start with Vitality. I think it's pretty straightforward. Currently ranked #1 team in the world. They were shaky at the showdown, but in my eyes and in many others' eyes, I don't think they were paying too much attention to this, especially with the all hands on deck for the major itself. Astralis had a lot more to play for, and for that reason, I think that Vitality just didn't have enough preparation, and as well, it is online. That is just how sometimes the way the cookie crumbles. But I still think that the roster that this squad has is just undeniable. You have Zywoo coming into peak form. You have Spinks also slotting in pretty comfortably. There are some qualms that I have with him, but he's getting better. Magisk, in particular, becoming that second star that Vitality desperately needs. And then obviously Dupree and Apex chipping in with some key impacts throughout the various tournaments that they've shown thus far. So I think Vitality should be a comfort. Cloud9 will be my next one. I think that one's even more straightforward than most people might think. I think that even though they are a mentally fragile team where they can potentially lose to anybody, I think that when it comes to situations like this in the challenger stage, they are very good at dispatching lesser opposition. And I think that this is going to be no different. Now, when we get to the legend stage, that's where it's going to have to be a bit of a toss-up depending on the matchups that they might get. But all in all, I think they are a cut above all of the teams here. I think realistically, they should be trying to go 3-0 here. I wouldn't be surprised if they do. They are one of the types of teams to do so. But I just think that it's a bit risky just in the situation that they could be a mentally fragile team that lose a BO1 here or there. So I'm just going to put them in this advanced, the advanced position in the pick'ems. Who did I actually select next? Yeah, I selected the Outsiders as my 3rd team. I think that this squad fundamentally has gotten their system in check. They have a great understanding of how to play the team-based portion of Counter-Strike. And although that theoretically they're not necessarily the flashiest team and that they don't have the flashiest players, even if they've lost Yekindar, James still can frag. Kicker still has his impact. Flit is now becoming a star of his own. And Norbert and Fame, the new additions, have clearly shown that they're willing to put in the work to slot into the James IGL system. And I think that this all in all is overcoming a lot of great teams and the teams that may have the firepower edge just get really frustrated and constricted by the style that outsiders decide to deploy. So I think that regardless of whether or not you think that they're a great team, I think that regardless of that, they are still undeniable, and I think that even they'll definitely be able to make their way through a 3-2, 3-3-1. They could drop. They probably will, frankly, drop a BO1 here or there, and I think that all in all, they should be able to make it. My next one that I'm going to be picking here is Furia. I think that Furia is the only team in the Brazilian field that will go deep at this major. I think that they are the antithesis of how Brazilian Counter-Strike is played, and therefore the mentalities that these guys show are a little bit more different, and I don't think that the pressure is going to get to them as I might think that it would get to the other Brazilian teams. Their form is very middling, but I think that they're another team in that Cloud9 category where I think they're a cut above the caliber of teams that they actually play up against. I think that they are very good in the BO1s. Their map pool is deep enough. I think that you have firepower that you can rely upon, even if the original game plans don't go according to plan. K-Serata and Yuri are always a safe pair of hands. Safe came online at the Americas RMR as well. And it's really dependable on whether or not you get to see that art masterclass that he usually shows. It's very up and down as it is. And obviously Drop, I think, honestly did pretty well for himself. I think that at the Americas RMR, he also showcased that he has the potential to do very well. So I think that Furia will be that Brazilian representation that shines on through for the rest of the major. But I will discuss about the other representatives in a little bit. The next team that I'm going to pick here is going to be OG. This doesn't necessarily seem like the best pick, but I think that with the caliber of teams, again, that the rest of the field is, I just think that OG matches up very well with the squad. I think that they've got what it takes to get it over the line. I mean, Dexter is a superstar in his own right. He's been able to single-handedly showcase that this squad is one to be feared. Neofrag is very up and down. Obviously, he is, I think, the one player that I'm not really sure just yet. But that alongside just the looser style that the Next has been calling has been pretty good. The Flames as well has shown that he's got what it takes. I'm very iffy on their map pool, but I still think that they've got enough of gas in the tank that they can win at least these BO1s just with the middling pool that's going to have to come up in those BO1s for them to advance through. And then finally, we get to these last two spots, and I think that there's a lot of teams that you can pick here, and I'm going to go with Fnatic as one of them. They made the playoffs of EPL, and I think that they did it pretty impressively. I really enjoyed what I saw from them. They have a good framework. I was very unsure about how Mezzi would actually IGL for this squad, but he's actually come into his own. And with that being said, the rest of the roster is kind of they've got enough base of a firepower that there's no real weak link for this squad, and that in and of itself makes me feel as though that they'll be able to go toe-to-toe with a lot of these international rosters, with these Brazilian competition, and I think that the work that Mezzi and Kita have done have elevated, even though you have the odd Nico Odo's disappearance or Roy disappearance as well. You can have people pick up the pieces, and you have enough of a framework in terms of tactics that you can get by. They also have a key piece of the veto with Ancient that I think they're very, very good on, and I think they can utilize that to their best effect, especially in the veto. So look out for Fnatic. I think they should be able to make it through. Now this last spot, we have a lot of teams that we can pick from here. Big, BNE, Maus, 00 Nation, and Imperial. The reason why I'm not going to be picking 00 Nation and Imperial is I just don't... So first of all, I don't think Imperial has what it takes to actually compete against some of the caliber teams at this major. I don't care that it is in home turf. In regard to that, you can check out Rescope, where we discussed about the impact of home crowds, Thor and I, and basically found that largely the Brazilian core of LGSK very much struggled even as the favorites within their home country. And you can say that it wasn't a major, but in fact, I think the major compounds that pressure, and the ability for them to actually compete and get into the heads. I don't think they're going to be along in the tournament for that long that they can actually activate that kind of veteran edge that this team has shown time and time again. So I don't think that Imperial is going to make it this time through, and that leaves what 00 Nation as that other 00 Nation and 9Z if you want to count South American representation. 9Z, I think it's very fantastic that they were able to show some land prowess to get here. They've certainly surprised at the Americas RMR. However, this is another step above. This is where you actually have to play in front of a crowd. You have to play against teams that are just more savvy in these positions. And I think that with their lower seeding, they're going to get dealt some very difficult matchups. And I just don't think that NQZ is ready to play in the big leagues just yet. I'm very excited to see his development, but NQZ as well as Buddha, I just think they're too young to just come into the limelight immediately and perform in front of a crowd. So I'm not going to go with 9Z. And then 00 Nation, I just don't think it's their time yet. I think you need to give them a little bit more space, and I think that they've got probably the highest skill ceiling of all the representation here. However, I just don't think that they've been able to come together consistently for it to work out in their favor. And so I want to tie back into that SKLG core pressure issue. Cold Zero and Taco also have their fair share. So I'm going to go with 00 Nation not being able to go through. So now we basically have what BNE, Big, Mouse, and EG. Oh, and IHC. Obviously, I think IHC is more of the caliber team that would actually make it through and was in contention for the 0-3 slot. So I think I've inherently talked about them. EG, I think, showed that they have at least finally a baseline to work with now. I still think that they need a couple of pieces to become more consistent. I'm looking at Breezy, I'm looking at Cirque, and I think they're a piece away to actually start competing at the tippity top again. And they're just very inconsistent. Sometimes I see some very piss poor gameplay from them. Other times I see Neil and calling very well. I see the pieces of EG working together in harmony. You have Breeze show up, you have Automatic show up, and Hext has just been an absolute revelation. He's a piece that EG should be keeping 9 times out of 10. But I just don't think it's their time. Again, very similar to the 0-0 situation. And finally, we have Big, BNE, and Mouse. I just think that whole standing situation for Big is not good enough for them to actually compete. I was trying to make a case for them to 3-0 just because of how inconsistent that they can be. They can be very, very competitive, and they can fall very, very flat. And I think that we're gonna get the latter this time around. I think that Big with Sin, while I do like Sin, he did very well at Fragadelphia. He showed some good signs. I just don't think it's enough to play at the biggest stage. BNE and Mouse. These are the two matchups that I think I'm most confused about because I don't necessarily believe entirely in Mouse. However, I do think that they have the more experience in regards to the level of competition that's at this event. Well, that means you got... and then on the other side of things, I think BNE is just a better team right now. I think they've been showing a little bit more passion, a little bit more grit, and they're grinding down some of these teams in the best of threes that I'd like to edge it to them. But overall, I'm going to go to Mouse just because I think that the individuals can overcome a lot of the situations that are thrown at them. Torji is still a fantastic opper. Zershin is still a demon in the server, especially against lower level teams. And then obviously you have the undeniable factor of Frozen, who has been showing that he can actually slot into Rops' roles and perform very, very highly. So I'm very looking forward to Mouse qualifying for the next stage. I think these three teams that I have at the end here, OG, Fnatic, and Mouse, are a bit risky, just in the sense that I think a lot of these international squads are very up and down, but I think that with the caliber of teams that are available here, that at least one of them should be able to go through. So these are my pick'ems for the Challenger stage. We're going to go for that diamond. I think that we can get to at least the gold, so I hope you guys join with me in this journey. I'm excited to get started with this major. It's going to be very, very exciting. We're going to have some NA content in the future with a couple of special guests, so look out for that in terms of content. I've made a twitch.tv/DatPaladin. The I in Dat Paladin is in 1. And I'm going to be doing watch parties with a lot of friends in the scene. So definitely stay tuned for that. We're going to be trying to watch all the Challengers games, maybe some of the Legends games as well. So keep an eye out on all of that content. But yeah, stay tuned. Watch the Twitch. Watch the YouTube podcast that we have with the special guests. Stay tuned for more Diamond Coin content. And I hope you guys enjoy the major. So take care, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.